I am Big Jim Fish, and welcome to the Titans of Applied Ballistics high-end laser rangefinding binoculars shootout. Here we will be comparing the three binoculars that I have done, three laser rangefinding binoculars I've done reviews on in the last couple years, the Leica Geovid Pros, the Sig Kilo 10Ks, and the Vectronix Vector Xs. There are detailed reviews of these that are written available on snipershide.com. You're going to have to go find them yourselves because I cannot link to gun sites from YouTube, but those reviews have a lot more detail on exactly what you can range at exactly what distances, the very intricacies of optical performance, and even some interesting background on how laser rangefinders work. For full disclosure, the Leicas here were purchased for me at a discount after I did those reviews, and both the SIGs and Vectronix Vector Xs were in fact provided to me at no charge from those two companies for the purposes of their respective reviews. No money was paid to me by any of these companies for doing these reviews, and none of them have any editorial control of what it is that I say. The purpose of this particular video is to be a companion to those reviews, to allow me to sort of talk a little bit about the overlap in these products in terms of their function and the unique advantages that each one has in specific areas of that function relative to the others. Sort of like you might be interested in buying one of these, but not sure exactly which one is the right one for you. And indeed, depending on exactly what your use cases are and what you care most about, any of these products might be the best choice for you. There's not a best version of these for all things. I also want to add a little bit more third-party information in this than I did in the reviews. Usually in the reviews, I stick strictly to what my personal experiences have been. This one will include some data taken from other people's experiences. So, Applied Ballistics. I'll admit I'm a little biased towards the Applied Ballistics guys. And that's not because they've paid me any money, because they haven't. It's because I have known them for a long time. I've read Brian Litz's books, and I've met him at SHOT Show a couple of times, and we've had a lot of conversations about different ballistic topics over the years, particularly talked a lot about 22 long rifle ballistics and bullet design. And I've known Nick for a number of years as well. Even before he was with Applied Ballistics, his company Invisti worked with Applied Ballistics, and I've been up to their particular location, which is here in Ohio, and toured the place, did a little article on that, which you could find as well. And I really believe in what these guys are doing and in the quality of their product. One of the things you get with the Applied Ballistics ecosystem that you do not get with other companies' ecosystems are that there's a whole bunch of other devices from different companies that will work with these because they're in the Applied Ballistics ecosystem that may or may not have ever been intended to work with any particular one of these products. For instance, you have wind meters from Kestrel, you have an ultrasonic wind meter from Calypso, you have Garmin watches, you have Garmin little digital range cards, and you have the applications from Onyx and Base Maps, which allow you to place remote points using these binoculars to track game after shooting them, that sort of thing. Or to just mark the point because you want to navigate to it and you have a rather circuitous route to get there and you want to have a GPS point, which is pretty cool. Applied Ballistics also gives you what I think are better ballistic profiles. So that's what these guys do. In the case of a lot of the other laser rangefinding binoculars, if they've added on a ballistic calculator, that's really just an add-on, right? Sometimes they don't even go to the trouble of actually letting you enter real ballistic information. They just give you like 3 curves, and it's like, choose the closest curve to what your particular bullet is, which honestly sucks. It especially sucks if you're talking about like a $3,000 binocular, and am I going to even use their non-specific imprecise curve? Like, no, you're probably going to then enter it into an app that you keep with you, but my gosh, you paid a fortune for this binocular and it doesn't even have the ballistic solution in it, which I think kind of sucks. And that team is not actively working on that product on a regular basis either, because that team was probably hired by the optics company. Optics companies don't have generally application, smartphone application engineers working for them. So they've hired somebody to do that. It's not being updated a lot. And it's just not the same as having a company that actually does ballistics working on your ballistics, which is what you get with Applied Ballistics. And they've done a lot when it comes to making these profiles more precise, to the point that in many cases you actually get a bullet specific drop profile. It's not a stretched version of a G1 bullet or a stretched version of a G1 or a stretched version of a G7 projectile. You're talking about data that's actually been taken on a specific bullet that you're shooting, and a profile has been made for that bullet, and that profile is more precise, especially when you get beyond the range of it dropping back across the sound barrier, which matters a lot if you're an ELR shooter. What it means in the real world to me is that prior to using Applied Ballistics, whenever I would create a ballistic profile using one of the various free versions on the internet, and then I would print it out and I would take it to the range, there would always be changes, a lot of changes to it, right? I would check it against the real data at the range, and I would find it wanting, and then I would write down what the true values were, and I'd go back and I'd alter the input variables on the computer program until I got a profile that matched my actual profile, which took a lot longer, right? In the case of Applied Ballistics, more than half the time, the profile has actually just been right. I've entered the velocity, I've entered the bullet or the G7 in the case of if I'm using a bullet that does not have a bullet specific profile. And like 3/4 of the time it's right and doesn't need any editing whatsoever. Even when it's not right and it does need some editing, the truth is that editing is much quicker with the Applied Ballistics Elite program because it actually has a function that allows you to true the two together. So I think it's fantastic. I think it has made my life easier, and the profiles are better, and I have a lot more faith in the profiles because of how very often they've been better. All three of these units have access to that, provided you have one of the Leica units that either came with Elite or you purchase the aftermarket upgrade. Some of the Leicas only come with Applied Ballistics Basic, but they have the capability of doing Elite, and it's like $150. And if you're buying an almost $3,000 binocular, you're going to spend $150, aren't you? So we'll start out with the Leicas because in a way they're the simplest product. These are the most binoculary of the three laser rangefinding binoculars. And by that I mean, in terms of their binocular function, they are the best. The biggest reason for that is that they have nice open frame design where you get a full wrap on the barrel, right? So you can use these things one-handed really nicely and easily. They are super comfortable. They are like using bird watching binoculars. They are like using bird watching binoculars when it comes to the beauty of the clarity of the image too. These have glass that, when I compare it to the Swarovskis, is definitely in the same class as the Swarovskis. It is not the same as the Swarovskis because Swarovskis do a thing called field flattening, where they very aggressively flatten the image. This is a removal of a distortion, and thus it is good, but it is also a change in the way that the image is perceived by you. If you utilized field flatteners, it makes it harder for you to tell what's in front of what in the image. And so some people like them, some people don't. This has been debated for a long time in the bird watching circles, and it basically marks a lot of the division between people who like Leicas and people who like Swarovski, because Leica has never done that. They have stuck with not putting field flatteners in their binos, and indeed these don't have field flatteners. So spectacularly comfortable. The optics are excellent. I should mention that I also believe the Vector X's are similarly good in terms of their optics. They were a little better in terms of resolution, I thought, than the Geovids. They are not as good in terms of field of view and in terms of color rendition. The color rendition is actually significantly better in the Geovids as a result of one of their other design choices. And both of them had spectacular performance when it comes to chromatic aberration. But because of the difference in the comfort level of these, and that combined with the excellent optical performance, I would say these are the most binocular the most binoculary of the three, the ones that I prefer using the most when I'm not range finding. And indeed, the majority of time that I've spent using the Leicas has been using them in a nature observing capacity and not in a range finding capacity, because if I'm taking something to the park to observe nature, this is the one that gets chosen pretty much every time because it is so comfortable and nice to use. So the choice that made it so that these have better color is that these do not have an AMO LED screen in them. They have a segmented LED. And that means that you're getting, you know, 3-letter acronyms and readouts that look like they're from your parents' alarm clock, right? You're not getting a screen that looks like it's your computer screen. They can make that brighter, and which means they need less notch filter, and less notch filter means you retain a truer and better looking color. The side effect of that is that you also eat through batteries really quick. That segmented LED uses 20 times the energy of the AMO LED, and so these suckers have eaten up almost all the batteries that came with all of the units. In fact, I have some more batteries on the way because I ate up the batteries. Yum, yum, yum. So always make sure you keep a spare battery with these. I'm not talking about like you eat up a battery a day, but I am talking about you eat up a battery more than 10 times as fast as you eat up the battery in the Sig. And so you will eat up more than one battery in a season with these. That also means, the segmented LED, that the menu system inside of the binoculars really kind of sucks to navigate, right? It's all 3-letter acronyms. You've only got 2 buttons to navigate it. Leica has done a great job of designing around that because they really wanted the best possible optical performance. They didn't want to sacrifice, so they didn't want to put in a full screen, even though they actually did have that option during the design. To design around that, they essentially designed their app to very easily choose all of the settings that you will want to choose for the binocular and then send them over. So you do those settings in the app essentially before you go out hunting. One of the settings is even the ballistic profile. These only store 1 ballistic profile at a time, and it's not because you can't have a bunch of ballistic profiles stored in the app. You can have as many as you want. I don't know if that's true. Maybe there's a limit of a few thousand. I really don't know. But you can have a lot of ballistic profiles. You send 1 over at a time. And so it's really designed for you to choose the menu options in the application, set it all up, then send it to the binocular, and you only have to have the binocular in the field. It's very well done the way they do that, but it does mean that you're not in the field able to really do everything without the application. If you like, you know, going to the range and doing multiple guns, it does mean that you'd be absolutely fine when it comes to going in the field when you're hunting, that sort of thing. So warranty on these, they actually fairly recently improved it. It's much more robust than it was. 10-year no fault, covers the electronics and everything. So you drop it, you break it, that sort of thing. You got a 10-year warranty on it, which is pretty nice. It carries the 30-year warranty on just the optics. That is not a no fault, but it is if the optics fail within 30 years, they'll replace the optics. I should mention before we leave the Leicas that they have been, in my opinion, they've gone above and beyond in some of their customer service. So the previous model to these of the Geovid series were the Geovid.coms. And the software company that they had worked with to design those went defunct. Now, this was an old product for Leica. They could have just, you know, left it as it is. And as smartphones update and that sort of thing, their customers could be pretty SOL because they wouldn't really have the ability then possibly to interface with their very nice, expensive Geovid binoculars. Instead, Leica spent a lot of time and money hiring the guys at Applied Ballistics to kind of, to some extent, reverse engineer to make it so that they could interface those binoculars with the Applied Ballistics system. Now, they can't upgrade the actual hardware in the binoculars to be Applied Ballistics hardware, but you can still utilize the binoculars with the Applied Ballistic application so that this gets updated as time goes on and you can continue to use those binoculars. That's really going above and beyond for your customers. And that's honestly what I would hope you'd expect from a luxury product company like Leica, but I don't think it's what you always get. And I think they should be commended for that. So that's the Leicas on customer service and on warranty support. Sig 10Ks. So if these are the most binoculary of the group here, then these are the most rangefindery. The Sig 10Ks came up with a new laser rangefinding engine. I think they call it like the DSP Lightwave 2 rangefinding engine, which basically is sending more pulses of light with longer distance between them in order to stay within the class 1 eye safe range over a longer period of time, collecting more data and then analyzing that using a more sophisticated algorithm than had been done before. So the laser is very similar between these two, and the output of it is very similar in terms of the amount of energy over amount of time. But these use that to collect more data and they process it better. The result is you get a lot longer maximum range from these. Whereas in the case of the Leicas, you had a maximum range on, say, a human or a deer target of a little over 1,000 yards. These will go more than 2,000 yards, where these will only get to about 2,000 on trees. These will get to about 4,000 on trees. You can even get ranges of almost 10,000, maybe even 10,000 in absolutely ideal conditions, which means night, by the way, on giant buildings, that sort of thing. So you get really spectacularly improved range finding performance on these versus the generation of laser technology that laser processing technology is more accurate, that the Leicas use. The Vector X uses similar laser technology to the Sig 10Ks, but the optical design of these is a little different, and the result is that the SIGs, I think, will range farther. And I say I think because there's a little interpolation in there for me, because I have a prototype version of this unit which can range a little farther than the production version, but also has a little problems in getting false ranges that the production version won't have. So based on the data of myself and others, I think this is the longest distance rangefinder and the most reliable rangefinder at super long distances. It also has more modes. It does a fog mode that's spectacular because it can see through fog and snow in a way that allows you to range things in those sorts of conditions that you can't range without that mode, because the rangefinder will just bounce back and it'll just tell you it's like 30 yards, because that's the closest range, or a closer range. It's getting so much interference that it reads a falsely short distance. That mode allows you to see through more things. It also has a last and a first mode for last target and first target. It has an XR mode. It has a few more modes. So as rangefinders go, this is the best of the three in doing super long distance ranging, and a lot of ELR guys use it for that reason, because you can often get the 2,500 yard targets and that sort of thing that they are shooting at. So the screen in this is a 304 pixel by 256 pixel AMO LED screen. I think this was the first set of laser rangefinding binoculars to have a screen like that. It gives you a lot of capabilities. Number one, obviously the battery. It uses tremendously less battery, because most of the battery in these things is not used rangefinding, it's used in the screen itself. So it gives you tremendous battery life. These can go a long time on even the little C2 battery that they have, or CR2 maybe, that they have. The screen also allows you to navigate the menu system very well in the binoculars. You can change between 30 different ballistic profiles that are stored here. So you can have your gun, your friend's gun, another one of your guns, all that sort of thing. You can easily, quickly change those profiles in the rangefinder without ever bringing up the app. You can change the environmental variables, that sort of thing, very easily without messing with the app, which is really excellent. In the SIG, they also did a unique thing where they make it so you can true the reticle, the rangefinding reticle, to where your actual beam is. Most people don't know this, but on laser rangefinders, the reticle is not perfectly aligned to the beam. It's too expensive to do that. There's a range of acceptable alignment that each company has. And that acceptable alignment is not as tight as the alignment that you can actually have when you line up a reticle. So there is an advantage to knowing exactly where your aiming point is. For instance, in the Vector X's, I have a target card, a little card with a hand-drawn version of my reticle on it that I've actually marked on it where the aiming point is, so that I can remember that, because sometimes I forget it after long periods of time. so that I can aim more precisely, because we are talking about very, very tiny targets at long distances with rangefinders of this capability. And as a result, it is helpful to know exactly where that aiming point is, and the SIG lets you set it so it perfectly lines up. The last sort of interesting thing the SIGs do is these are part of the Sig BDX system, which is another ecosystem of products. And the BDX system allows you to send a range directly from your binoculars to a digital rifle scope. And that rifle scope can then illuminate pixels on your reticle where your aiming point is, which is super cool. I mean, it's like the thing we've been promised for a lot of time with the range finding technology. And I think SIG has best delivered that in terms of products that are easy to use and actually get the job done. The BDX system is fun, and I love taking out some inexperienced shooters to try long distance shooting for the first time with it. And we will at some point have a video of that because it was super fun. All right. So the things that aren't quite as spectacular about the SIG 10K is the glass is just not in the same league as the other two here, or the Swarovskis. We're talking about not bad glass. These are good glass. They're about equivalent to a mid-range, range-finding binocular, something like a Zeiss Conquest. They're good, but they're not top tier, like the other two of these are. These also only come in 10 by 42 in terms of their configuration, whereas both the Leicas and the Vector X's come in different powers, and in the case of the Leica, they come in different objective sizes as well. So there's more variety to those. The last thing to say about the SIG 10Ks here is their warranty coverage is the best of the lot, and it's honestly as good as warranty coverage can get. It is a fully transferable forever warranty that even covers accidental damage and doesn't require you to even have a receipt to utilize it. So it is covered. That's what the warranty is. The warranty is it's covered. I don't think you can lose them and have it covered, but if you've got the carcass of the product, it's covered. So it's good warranty. And their customer service has excellent reputation as well. Vector X's, last one here. So Vector X's have excellent glass that's in league with the Leicas. I mentioned exactly the differences in that, and so I won't go into that again, but very, very good glass. The laser technology is not as good as the SIG, I think, but it's close. It's much closer to the SIG in performance than it is to the Leicas in performance. So really excellent lasers as well. It also has the same 304 by 256 pixel AMO LED screen as the SIG. It looks a little different in the Vectronix because there's a significantly different optical platform. And so the screen looks a little bigger. It's actually the same number pixel screen and literally the same little LED screen. In it, it also has an excellent menu system. It's not the same exact menu system. Vectronix uses a few more pictures and that sort of thing, but it's very similar. It's also got a 30 rifle stored profile in there. It does have one advantage in that the Vectronix Vector X's have a live target card creation menu in there, which is really neat because you can just pop, 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 range multiple targets, and it will create the target card in there, which is pretty cool. I really like that feature as well. In addition to the low energy use you get from these as a result of the AMO LED screen, you actually have a much nicer battery system than any of the other ones. So the battery that this takes is a big 123A battery instead of the smaller CR2 battery. There is also an option to use this longer cap that it currently has here to use an 18650 rechargeable lithium ion battery. You should do that. You should use either that battery, or there's actually a rechargeable one that one of the companies makes that uses that chemistry but fits in a 123A length, so you can use the shorter cap. These 3.6 volt batteries that use that rechargeable chemistry work better in cold weather. These will actually brown out with the regular 123A battery if you're at below freezing temperatures. It's not enough juice to power the unit because the battery performance degrades with temperature, and so when you go to range it, it just turns off. you don't have that problem with rechargeable batteries, in addition to having the huge advantage the rechargeable batteries are, which is that you don't have to constantly buy new batteries. And also, you can top them off. So you can instead of having to just not know when your battery is going to fail, after using it for a couple of range sessions, or maybe a couple of like dozen range sessions. In the case of the giant 18650 battery, like you're just not you. I haven't recharged it yet. I've been using it for more than a year. It's a huge battery. That gives you the advantage to recharge it and top it off. The last thing to say about the Vector X is the other mode that they have created, which is spotting scope replacement mode. So these come in 10x, 12x, and 8x. They also come with two different reticles, one of which just has one set of graduations and kind of is off to the side. It's kind of like the hunting reticle. It's designed not to be used with range boosters or with mag boosters. The other has two different reticles, one of which is calibrated to the magnification of your binoculars, and the other of which is calculated to the magnification of your binoculars, plus these add-on 40% magnification boosters that you can buy. So they screw right into the objective like this. They are optically excellent, and they allow you to take, in this case, a 10x set of binoculars and make them 14x when you want. So this means you can take the 10x hunting, it's got the reticle that's calibrated for that sort of thing, and maybe then you decide at the range you're going to use it to replace your spotting scope, and you screw these things into it. I have used it tremendously in that capability, and it is fantastic. Now that I've used binoculars in lieu of a spotting scope, I'm not going back to the spotting scope, because having both eyes allows you to see trace so tremendously better, and it sometimes allows you to see the bullet itself flying through the sky. It is awesome. That may also be part and parcel because you've got, instead of a tiny little field of view from a spotting scope, you've got a giant binoculars field of view. I'm not really sure, but it is tremendously better. I can see why all the match shooters are spotting with binoculars now, because it has that etched reticle that's calibrated, and it was calibrated correctly when I tested it. It allows you to utilize that function, which I highly recommend. My experience with these range extenders is that they have not changed the ranging capability of the binoculars. I will say that there are some people that have had some issues with theirs interfering with the ability of the binoculars to range well, and that brings us to quality control and warranty, because there have been a few quality control issues with the Vector X binoculars. The most notable one has been some of the folks reporting that their range extenders, their magnification boosters, are keeping the binoculars from ranging well. The other of which is some of the Europeans that have, the European version of these has a class 1 laser instead of a class 1M, so they are not as powerful as the US version. They don't range quite as far. Some of the Europeans were having some issues with their rangefinders getting the ranges that they thought they should. It's my understanding that they have improved the European version so that it is ranging farther, and that they are working on the QC issues with the mag boosters. However, the overall warranty on these is not as good as either of these other two products. They are only warranted for 3 years on the electronics and 10 years on the optics, and this is not a no-fault warranty. So if you drop them and bang them up, they are not covered. They are only covered essentially against things happening where they break themselves. So Vector does not have the most sterling reputation over the years for customer service. They have contracted Europtic to help them with customer service on this product and on their new, because this product is part of a new consumer line for them. They're trying to improve their customer service, and they're trying to make it easier for people to send things into repair and that sort of thing. So they've contracted with Europtic to help them on that. But that is definitely something to keep in mind relative to the other of these two products. The reputation and the warranty are not as good. So in summary, what we have is 3 different really nice laser range finding binoculars that have very high degree of overlap in their capability, but don't have exactly the same capability. And depending on what it is that you want to do and what it is that you value most, there are different ones of these that I think would probably be the right product for you. All of them are commonly used in match situations. All of them are commonly used in hunting situations. And I think they all have their own people who love them best. I hope that this helps you to make any decisions, or just to have fun looking at some of the coolest laser range finding products that exist out there. Please like and subscribe so the YouTube algorithm will like me better. Believe it or not, that does actually matter. I was kind of a jerk. I never did that before. I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I just didn't like the whole like digital voting thing. And now that I make content, I totally get it. And I actually like people's videos now. So please do that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will bring you more content like this.